One. Hi. This is our group. We're doing a project on race, and we're going to have a little discussion about the myths of race. My name is Bernice, and this is my partner Shonda, and she's going to go first.
Okay, hello. So while reading the article, What is Race? I think one of the biggest myths is that people often think that it determines where you are, like where you're from, and like what's your nationality. Um, for example, like when I was looking at the article, that Africa has the widest range.
Say again when I was looking at the article.
When I was looking at the article, it said that Africa has the widest range and has a quantity of skin color. So pretty much it just goes to show that there's different people, there's different colors of people, and they can be the same nationality. For example, there's white Africans, and then there's people that are my skin color, but they're actually Spanish. So the myth is that you can't determine someone's skin color as their nationality. And it also says that in 19 is when U.S. citizens were able to.
Say that one more time. In 19 what?
In 1970, the article said that in 1970 is when U.S. citizens were able to choose their own classification of who they are as an individual, their nationality.
Instead of someone else looking at them and saying, "Oh, they're black."
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. I think I was gonna say something, but I forgot. Well, I think that America too is the only place that when you're African American or is it Mexican American? And I think if you go to England, do they say they're Black England or Black English or
no? It's just England.
I think that's only
in America, like in the U.S.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me tell. Yeah, it is. It's really yeah. Especially when you think, for example, my dad is from the Virgin Islands, so for me to say I'm African American, I'm really not. My family's not from Africa. And I was thinking about that lately, and I was just like, does that still make me African American? Because my mom's Native American and my dad's from the island, so no part of me is actually African.
And that's really sad because it's like people, just look at skin tone. It's like, oh, that person's black. And they could be totally wrong. They could be from,
Puerto Rico, Dominican.
Egypt.
Yeah.
It's very interesting how we look at someone and just figure, oh, this person's white, that person's black.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the myth that I am going to talk about is the fact that people think that being colorblind, aka ignoring racism, let me just turn this to myself. Ignoring racism equals no racism or that racism will end. I think this is not true. I think that I think this promotes racism, or it kind of turns the blind eye. It doesn't really help. I think that in order to end racism, these things need to be faced head on. So, for example, white privilege. In order to combat that, you need to understand, instead of saying, "Oh, there's no white privilege," or "There's no certain privilege," you need to accept that there is, understand what it is, so that it can be broken down and it doesn't have to be what it is anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get what I'm saying? Let me just look at my notes.
Yeah.
So yeah, for example, they said the most concrete action that one individual can take to educate themselves about the ways that race and racism work and to see things in terms of the social relations rather than discrete individual acts. Every racial group is always linked to every other racial group. So when you talk about something like white privilege, you have to understand it's a system of inequality that relates groups together. That's an important part of how institutional racism works. It perpetuates inequality in a way that most people will gain the advantage don't realize. So, for example, people who have the privilege aren't realizing it because they have it.
Right.
For example, I didn't realize that I had privilege growing up because I have friends who've never had cars before, and I had 2 cars by the time I was 16. So but when you're in that, you don't understand, and you have to understand to be able to fix anything. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you have any
I
questions?
totally get what you're saying. Why do you think people the other cheek when it comes to racism?
I think. Oh, you said so. Just to repeat your question, just to make sure it was clear. Why do people turn the other cheek? I think some people are afraid of combating or afraid of putting themselves out there and being associated with it. I think some people don't want to think it's real, and I think that's an issue. I think that it needs to be known because you can't fix anything until it's known. Saying something isn't doesn't work. It needs to be known. It needs to be ready to be fought. If you want to fight it, if you don't, then I'd rather you just acknowledge it and say you don't than
Right.
saying it doesn't work. You know. So so I think we've decided what the two biggest myths are, right?
Yes, we did.
So